session. I have item 8, and I do believe I'll have Commissioner of Deeds by Monday. Right, Patricia? Thank you. And Counselor Caldwell is excused, and Counselor Allen will take her items.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Counselor Caldwell has item 9, and this is with the Parks Department agreement with rec desks. I think I saw Commissioner LaFave on here. Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Julie LaFave, Commissioner of Parks and Recreation. This is a service we've been using for 3 years, so we are just requesting to start another 3-year cycle with Rec Desk. This is how we do all of our permitting, how we track all of our registrations, how we're able to offer online registration, and also show calendars of all of our facilities for anybody who wishes to use one of our facilities.
Okay. And this is for 2 years, correct?
It's for 1 year with 2 one-year extensions.
Okay, got you. Okay. Any other questions or comments? No? All righty. So we'll mark this for ready on Monday. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Counselor Green.
Thank you, Madam President. Item 10, I believe Nico is going to present that one.
Hi, good morning. I had some issues finding my mute button. Apologies. Yes, I am bringing, hello everyone, hello councilors. I am bringing forward an item to enter an agreement with Microsoft Corporation and Talan, a software company, to receive their support, in-kind support, valued at $25,000 to receive some consulting services to improve our data architecture and data warehousing plans.
Any questions on this item?
Yeah, what specifically will they be improving? Nico, can you go into it a little bit more?
Yes. Well, we, as we're thinking about it, how we're building and designing our data architecture, it is important that we get the foundations right. So, as you may have heard from previous conversations, what we're leveraging is the platform provided by Microsoft, the cloud platform called Azure, which we want to continue using and continue expanding upon into the future. So that's why this is in partnership with Microsoft. Now, we're talking about the architecture in the sense of laying out the foundations of the house correctly. That means what tools we'll be using, how we'll set up different parts of the data ingestion pipelines, how we're setting up where the data is stored, how it's stored. So very foundational technical stuff that will allow us to have that foundation and then build use cases out of the data that will ultimately deliver value to the departments that we're working with. So we do use an approach where we'll identify use cases with some of our operating departments and making sure that the architecture that we're going with is in line with our data sets, our data needs, and ultimately our operational business cases. But this is very much about, as I said, setting the foundations, setting the skeleton so that we can have a firm ground to stand on for the future.
So will this increase connectivity between different departments and data interaction in different departments?
The work that we'll be doing will be setting up the foundation to do that. We're going to begin with a limited number of data sets for this particular engagement, which in the future we want to start connecting to more data sets. So ultimately we are going in the direction that you're alluding to, Councillor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions on this? Thank you, Nico. The next two items I
Thank you so
believe
much.
are from Law Department.
Yes, good afternoon. It's Joe Barry, First Assistant Corporation Counsel. The next item is a request to transfer funds between our process servers. The existing ordinance set aside specific amounts for each vendor, and we are requesting that 3,500 be transferred from Metro Attorneys to Aaron Nuzzo because of as we found over the course of the last several months, more work is being performed by Mr. Nuzzo. So that would cover the future invoices that we expect coming in that regard.
Any questions on this?
Just one quick one. So Joe, you're taking it from Metro because they didn't do as much as we thought they were going to do. So you're moving it to Mr. Nusso because he did the bulk of it.
Yeah, correct. In our initial planning, we anticipated using Metro more than we had for various reasons. It just we've used them a little bit, but their type of service is it depends on the specific service we're seeking, and we just have more use for the type of service that Aaron Nuzio provides.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on this item? Joe, do you want to do item 12 as well?
Yes, I believe this technically comes from the city clerk, but it's a necessary function to take the supplements that we produce every year in conjunction with the city clerk on legislation that has to be kept on permanent record in the annual supplements that get updated to the Muni Code website and then are ultimately produced in the annual council book.
Any questions on this item? Okay, thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councillor Paniagua.
Good afternoon, everybody. I have items 13 to 15. So let's start with item 13. It's jointly with Councillor Green and the Finance Committee. This is to authorize a lease agreement for the development of the STEAM school. This agreement will authorize the City of Syracuse and the Syracuse City School District to enter in a lease with Onondaga County. The property is on 701 South Warren Street. This is for the sole purpose to grant permission to the county to develop and aid in the construction of the STEAM school. I'm sure this has to do with the bonding capacity, but we have Suzanne Slack to help us with some of these details. The lease term is for 15 years with no renewal and not to exceed the $74 million. However, these numbers have changed a little since they were last presented. Susan, are you in the call now?
Yes, Commissioner, I'm here.
Oh, perfect. All right. Can you take us through these details?
Yes, thank you. Good morning.
Thank you.
I'm Ann Slack, the CFO for the Syracuse School District. So what you have before you today is a three-party lease that will allow the county to take ownership of the building itself from the city. So the title will transfer over to the county, and then we'll have a lease in place. And what this does is allows the county to borrow money to perform the construction for the renovations in the building. This was initially authorized 2.5 years ago. And at that time, the cost estimates from the state education department were that they would allow for up to $74 million of lease aid for this project. As you know, in that time, the cost of construction has gone up pretty significantly. So they will have adjustments to the building aid cost index. So this number will go up, and it will be set at a date and time, probably about a year from now, when the designs are finalized. The state will come in, do one more evaluation of the building aid units that drive the building aid, and then they'll also look at the building cost estimates at that time. So this is a placeholder number for right now so that we can move forward go ahead and have someone, architects actually build out the design for us. Those designs will get approved by the state. We'll get a final state aid number, and that will be part, I hope, of the cost of the construction that we're anticipating from the county. There are a few other potential sources of revenue that are being considered right now. One is, as you know, the school district has committed an additional $10 million for this project, not tied to anything particular yet, but it will be for this project. There is also currently, we are jointly, the county, the city, and the district, writing the Build Back Better grant, and a portion of that would include also potential for another $10 million of funding for the STEAM school construction. And then I think you're also aware, Dr. Jody Manning has been on board for about a year now. He has accumulated quite a bit of interest from local community agencies who are interested in making investments and donations in the project. So all of these things are tentative until we actually get the lease finalized. You are step 2 in the process. The board has approved it. Once it goes through the council, it will go back to the ledge for approval. Then we will move forward with doing the architectural designs and tying that back to the curriculum, which will really get the project started. I know that was a lot. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Counselor, do you want me to go first? Or? Okay. So,
Go ahead, Mike.
So, thank you, Suzanne. So if we, from a procedural standpoint, so you get the architectural documents and then it goes out to get more concrete bid numbers. Does that then come back to the council for approval of that final?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what I anticipate is about a year from now, we should be coming back to the board, the council, and the ledge with those final numbers.
Thanks.
Councilor Paniagua, I wonder if I could ask.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Don. Yes, go ahead.
Suzanne, nice seeing you again.
Nice to see you.
So this has to go back to the ledge to approve the bonding at the end because they approved it initially a year and a half ago.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So once this is all finalized, all 3 parties will have to go back and vote on the final documents in the bonding.
Okay. And we're going to pay off the bond by using state aid?
Yeah. So similar to what you're accustomed to with building aid, we would have debt for, let's say, a 15-year period. And the state aid is going to come in over 15 years, but there may not be exact match. There may be a year or two where there's payments going out where there's not aid coming in. This is a little bit different because the county is going to be paying the debt. So they may have debt that they're incurring, paying principal and interest before the aid comes in. The aid won't start until the day we sign a final lease and we have a certificate of occupancy that the district can go into the building. And that would require state ed approval. At that date, it'll trigger the annual lease payment. So for purposes of this discussion, it would be about $6 million a year. That lease aid would come to the district and would be transferred over to the county to offset their principal and interest payments.
So this won't impact the way we pay off the joint school bond, right?
It will not. You are correct.
Okay, so because we use state aid for that too, correct?
We do. That's a separate state aid, but you are correct. This does not impact that.
That's an amazing trick.
It is.
You know, so they're willing to wait until we can garner enough state aid to pay off the bond before we open up the doors, correct? Sort of?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And that is true with JSCB. We don't collect the state aid until the construction project is substantially complete.
Okay.
Oh, Suzanne, what happened to the building after 15 years? Does that officially become a property of City School District, or what happened?
So that's a great question. Joe Barry might know the history better than me, but it was a school at one time and it was an amazing, beautiful school. My parents went there. Former Commissioner Bodie went there. And in the 70s or 80s, it closed down. I think at the time there was some community issues and the decision was made to close the building down. The city maintained ownership of it, but the district was still responsible for the maintenance So the building is vacant. It's relatively clean and it's got heaters in it so that during the winter time we don't freeze pipes or anything. But in the interim, there was a brief period where the building transferred over to a private owner who started renovations. I don't know what for, but it kind of looked like a 1980s mall design. So there's a little bit of that awkwardness in the building. But then that didn't work out. The ownership came back to the city. The district continues to maintain the building, and it has been vacant since way back. Like you said, probably 40, 50 years it has been vacant. But it's beautiful and it needs just some renovation so that we can make that a hub at the corner of the city of Syracuse.
So it become a
It-
a city school district property after 15 years?
I'm sorry, I missed that question.
So does that become a city school district property after 15 years?
So just like all of the other school buildings, Counselor, the city will retain ownership. So when the lease is over, the ownership will go from the county back to the city, and the city will own the building, but the district will be responsible for the upkeep and the maintenance, just like we do with all the other school buildings. That's a great question.
All right.
That would include the rent, so.
Can I ask the question, Counselor?
Absolutely.
Because I'm looking at the bottom of it, okay? So the city will own the building, but the school district, you're saying, Suzanne, you're paying $6 million a year?
A year. Yeah.
A year. So as I'm reading it, at the bottom, it says if SSSD fails to make the rental payments, the city will be obligated to take the building and put it on the city county abstract. So please explain to me how that works.
I do not know how the abstract works. I think you need to defer if Joe Barry's available. I don't know how.
Yes, I can pick up on that. Joe Barry, First Assistant again. So as we, created this lease with the county, and the county is issuing the bonds on behalf of the city and the school district, they were understandably concerned that in the very unlikely event that state aid didn't materialize and the school district defaulted, that there'd be a mechanism for the county to have a backstop. And after so much discussion, it was agreed that in that unlikely event, the city would agree to use the abstract mechanism to collect any rent that was not paid on time. So for example, the rent would be due on July 1st of every year. And if it was not paid, the county would have the option when they develop their budget in September, which includes the abstract, to place that item on the abstract, similar to what they did with the Hiawatha Wall several years ago. I don't know if you recall that. And then it comes over to the council every December to be levied as part of the county tax levy. The abstract is, as you know, included in that and reviewed by the council every December.
Okay, so what you're saying is, just for argument's sake, school district doesn't pay the $6 million. That $6 million goes on our abstract with the county?
Correct.
Ooh, okay.
But I think our experience with JACB is that, is really kind of a doomsday scenario where state aid is not paid. We will not proceed until the state education department approves this lease, which triggers the state aid, which was enacted by special state legislation in 2020. So the state has allocated the money. There's a detailed process that all school projects have to go through, as Suzanne knows, with getting contracts approved and designs. And as long as we meet those requirements, my expectation would be that state aid would flow as it has for over 10 years on the JACB projects.
I get it, but I'm just looking at the equitable piece of it, because we keep saying that building is going to be equitable, it's going to be equity, and it's going to be countywide, and everybody's involved. But I just don't want to see the city stuck. I don't think it's going to happen, but I just have to mention that.
And on that note, President Hudson, I have a question too. So the city owns the building right now, and we're the ones responsible for keeping it standing, and or not?
Oh, so the city does own the building currently, and the school district is responsible for maintaining it. So if a window breaks or a pipe bursts or it needs to be cleaned, that's on the school district. And what will happen is the city will transfer ownership to the county, and that allows the county to borrow money for a project on that building, and it allows them to go in and do the renovations because they own it. At that point, they will continue to own it once the construction is done for 15 years. They'll be the landlord and the district will be the tenant, and we'll pay that lease. Once we finalize that in 15 years, the ownership will transfer back to the city just like it was before, and the district will run the school, and they again will be responsible for all the upkeep and the maintenance of the building. So it sounds like a lot of responsibility, but it's no different than what we do currently in the other schools.
So Suzanne, so if the district is going to be paying the county for the lease, so that payment would stop after 15 years, right? When it transfer back to the city?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So the lease aid formula, counselor, is only over 15 years. So if the county borrowed for 20 years or the county borrowed for 10 years, that's all going to shake out on their books. We're going to have that lease aid for that 15-year window.
Okay, so assume that the school continue to operate and the district continue to work and use it. Would that, so I take, because it's a city, the district wouldn't have to pay for the leasing, right? It would just, their leasing would be waived because it would be going to the county. Does that mean it once that 15 years is over, that lease would no longer necessary to be paid to the city as it was done to the county?
Right, because the payment, the lease payment, counselor, is really to pay the debt down. So the county's going to borrow money from bondholders, and they're going to have about $6 million a year in debt. We're going to transfer over to them the revenue we get from the state aid. So normally this would show up on the school district books if we did a project. So right now we're doing a project at Henniger. State aid will be reflected on the school district financials as well as the debt payments for the project at Henniger. What's happening now is those debt payments are being incurred by the county. So we're really passing the money through. The county has no means to generate aid on the project, but the school district does. So this unique partnership that we've entered into allows us to have the construction done without the city having to borrow the money or dip into their debt ceiling. The debt is all being handled on the county books. We are simply transferring the lease payment over to cover those debt payments. I don't think this is something we've done before. I think this is a first for all three entities.
But it is a county-wide school, correct?
Yes, ma'am. So to get to like the operation of the school, once the construction's done and we open school, the plan is that this will be a countywide high school. 60% of the students will be from the city, and then the remaining 40% will be available seats for students that go to school districts within Onondaga County. So each year we're planning on a class of 250 kids at each grade level. So when it's full, 1,000 kids in the school, a minimum of 600 would be city residents. The remaining 40% are available to the county.
Suzanne, but they don't bring their aid with them, the kids from the county, correct?
So for those of you that don't know how this works, the school districts, all of us get aid from the state based on the pupils that are in our district. The aid will stay at the county district and we will charge them a tuition rate so that they're transferring those funds in the form of a tuition for the pupils attending the countywide high school.
Excellent.
Has that tuition rate been set yet or no?
That will happen when we get closer to it. I did some crazy pro formas a few years ago to come up with a range of what that rate might look like. But I think we'll see it change pretty significantly by the time the school opens, because so much is changing with state aid right now.
And Suzanne, is it true that as students enter into the school eventually, it's going to be a percentage base, like 60 to 40%? Did I remember that correctly?
A percentage base for residents of the city?
Yes. Right.
Yes, you are correct. So 60% minimum from the city of Syracuse.
Okay.
Suzanne, are you obligated to have 40% from the county, or if 75% came from the city, would that be legally allowed?
So my understanding, and I would defer to Joe again, but my understanding, the way the legislation's written, it's a minimum 60% for the city. To the extent that we don't essentially sell that other 40%, we could fill those seats with city residents.
I have one more question, Suzanne. We keep talking about 6 million per year, but that's a little bit more than, well, way more than 74 million. Is that how far off we are right now of the original amount to what it will come to be? It's 90 million.
Yeah, no,
altogether.
we don't know yet. As there are folks doing cost estimates, and they're obviously higher than the 74 million. I just picked a round number for discussion purposes. Right now, we don't know what that cost is going to look like.
All right. Are there any more questions? In the interest of time, if we rather do a special committee meeting for
I was
this,
gonna ask you, Counselor, if you would hold a committee meeting.
we can certainly do that and schedule it before the next meeting. Are you available, Susan, to help us with this?
I am. Some of our staff are on vacation. If the meeting's going to be before Monday, if you need, facilities folks and that, I'll have to see who's available.
Okay, I'll connect with you after this meeting, and we'll see what we can do.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Thank you.
All right. Okay. All right, then the next item, let's see, is to request authorization of Arpa funds to enter into contract with the Urban Jobs Task Force. The appropriation will be for $200,000 for the Interstate 81 Community Workforce Engagement and Planning Program. This $200,000 will assist build capacity to the UJTF for operations and to bring advocacy and outreach in the community to ensure that our city residents are being included in all of the potential employment opportunities for I-81. And Sharon Owens, are you here? I see you. Can
I'm
you
here.
jump in and talk to us about this a little bit more?
Sure, you did a great job of explaining why we're asking for this authorization of these funds. Urban Jobs Task Force, for many people on the call, they've been in the forefront, particularly with the 81 project, to ensure that we have local hire. Towards the end of the summer into the fall, Greg Lowe and I participated in multiple meetings with the DOT and the Urban Jobs Task Force to prepare and submit to the Federal Highway Administration a SEP 14 application. By way of just a short history, SEP 14 was implemented under the Obama administration, discontinued under the Trump administration, and reinstated under the Biden administration. Since then, the Biden administration has actually signed this provision into law. So all of that hard work wasn't needed at the end, but it was great hard work that was done by all involved. The point for this allocation over a 2-year period is, as those individuals were meeting on that situation on our workforce committees out of the big table. The big table, 81 big table, is actually UJTF's idea that the city implemented on their behalf. They were the only uncompensated individuals at the table. And so this actually gives them, because the hard work begins now in ensuring that all the stakeholders around the table are held accountable for what we've agreed to. And this will allow them to build their capacity in hiring a director to ensure that their voices always and continue to be heard on this project. I'll entertain any questions, Councilor.
Deputy Mayor,
Yes.
may I, Councilor Paniagua?
Oh, absolutely. Go right ahead. Yeah.
Deputy Mayor, it's the idea. It's the idea to designate Urban Job Task Force as the lead agency to kind of fight and help the neighborhood with the advocacy.
It absolutely is. I wouldn't call them an agent of anyone. They're that independent body whose voice is always at the table advocating for that local hire. In addition, I left off the table, they're part of the Syracuse Build Steering Committee. They just have their hands in the work that's being done with the state DOT and EOC. So their hands and their voices are in every aspect, particularly with the 81 project when it comes to ensuring local hire.
Now with that, where do NYLC, NYCLU come into because I know Lanessa and other folks are working hard to also add their voices.
They continue to do exactly that. Lanessa and the staff on ACLU are compensated employees of the ACLU. The Urban Jobs Task Force has no compensated employees. And to continue to be able to, in this next phases of this project, to have that strong voice, this is our effort to support them in doing that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is very important to consider. These are voices that have been at the table since 2017. So they're already recognized by the parties that we're working with to continue on the conversation into the hard part that we're just about to engage with, right?
Yes.
If it's not inappropriate to ask, Deputy Mayor, do we know exactly who will be hired under what capacity, or is it just?
They are, and kudos to them. They are a not-for-profit organization, so they will do a search for a director.
Okay.
Well,
Decca Dancel, that all of you are very familiar with, I asked if she could be on this. She had a work conflict, but she will try hard to be here Monday if you have any continued questions. But she will continue to serve as the president of UJTF, and they will do a search for a director.
And what particularly, if you can, I don't know if this is more of a DECA question or if it works for you, Deputy Mayor, but what would this individual be doing kind of day in, day out? Would it be reaching out to the community, educating them about workforce type stuff, or, you know, more of the advocacy on the other side? I mean, we know exactly what it would look like.
It's a parallel path. They'll be continuing this individual on behalf of the organization to meet in all those rooms and all those tables, whether it's DOT, whether it's Syracuse Build, the multiple conversations around workforce training and ensuring. DOT just received a grant from the Federal Highway Administration to pull together a stakeholder group to coordinate all of the workforce training, placement, assisting DOT and holding the contractors accountable as well. And that individual will be doing community education.
Deputy Mayor, first of all, I want to thank DECA and Egg Lane, you know, as somebody that have watched what they do. It's a great thing. So thank you, DECA and Egg Lane and all the Urban Job Task Force group for what they do in the community. Now, my question is, you know, considering that Arpa money requirement is within, you know, next 2 years to be used. Now, does these money extend beyond that time frame, or would they need to use this money quickly?
That's a great question. It will, as we all know, the project is going to extend past this. We see this as a wonderful opportunity to create seed money for them to leverage. They already have begun to get some commitments from some other entities. Your hopeful vote on Monday will be the first leg in that process. As a not-for-profit, just like any other not-for-profit, they're going to have to look for additional funding to continue to sustain them. But this would be an amazing seed opportunity for them to have staffing on board to help them in that capacity.
And that was my next question, because, you know, we don't even know when 81 is starting. You know, it could be 2 years, you know, year 2, 3. We don't know yet. But as they continue, as important as this work is, it will require them to somehow look for funding beyond this 200,000.
Yes, sir. And while we anticipate shovels in the ground very late this year or early next year, the workforce training has to happen right now, and they are a critical part of that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Are there any more questions? Okay, thank you. And then for the last item, item number 15, we're nominating Mr. Jaquan Bay to fill the at-large appointment vacancy on the CRB. The term should have already started in January 1st of this year and would conclude in December of 2024. Are there any, there's a resume attached to our package in case you want to check that out. If you have any other questions, I'll entertain them. All right, well, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Hogan.
Thank you, President Hudson. I have items 16 and 17. And 16 is basically a shelter tax agreement with Creekside Landing Housing Funding Corporation. They're going to do some scattered site housing, mostly in the near west side and the south side. And do we have anybody who's going to speak towards this? Maybe Michael Collins?
Thanks, Councilor Hogan. I'm Matt OJ, Commissioner of Assessment. I can speak briefly to this, introducing it before turning it over to probably Michelle or Mike. This is 22 scattered sites with duplexes, plus 22 units of residential space within the building, the existing building at 414-16 West Onondaga Street, an office building that's been mostly vacant for at least 2 decades. There will also be a component of commercial space operated, I believe, by time of Jubilee that is excluded from this agreement. This is just strictly partially exempting the 66 units. Anything further? Michelle, would you like to fill in the gaps?
I think you pretty well covered it, Matt, but I'm happy to answer any particular questions if anyone has anything.
I just want to add that maybe so my fellow councilors are aware, this is all properties. The land bank was handed to the land bank. The land bank did what they needed to do to clear the property, and now we're going to put into significant use for many of our low-income residents of the city of Syracuse when we get new housing. I'm pretty excited about this, so I would urge everybody to support this. And if there's any questions from my fellow councilors, please let Miss Michelle or Matthew answer. Hearing none, I'll call this. Okay.
Just, it's Commissioner Michael Collins. Just for clarity, Creekside Landing, this is a corporation set up by Housing Vision, so it's a Housing Visions project.
Right, Housing Visions. That sort of threw me, Michael. Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned that because it sort of threw me that they threw together a nonprofit, and it isn't really near any. Well, I guess you could say it's near a creek. I guess you could say it's a little bit near Onondaga Creek, but I'm easily confused, as everybody knows. So there's item 16. I'll call that ready. Item 17. This is to approve a restaurant property located in 900 East Fayette Street. I believe it is in the 5th Council District, isn't that, Councilor Driscoll? I have no problems with it if we lost Councilor Driscoll. So I'll call them both ready, President Hudson.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Majok.
Thank you, Madam President. Chief Mann, are you in?
Yes, I am. Hello, Counselor.
Go ahead, walk us through, please.
Okay, today I am requesting your permission to enter into an agreement with FEMA to help the Syracuse Fire Department get a grant for $40,000. That money will be used to buy a few thousand smoke detectors, approximately 2,600 smoke detectors that we will be using to install in high-risk population areas of the city. The city would have a 5% local match to go along with that $40,000 if we're awarded. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, just a little slightly different from this. From last year, Chief, how many fire alarms and all of the equipment did we install last year? Do you remember?
So last year we installed close to 500 smoke detectors last year. Since 2012, we installed almost close to 10,000 smoke detectors. Our goal is to get these detectors along with the other detectors that we purchase in our budget every year. And I think I talked about this during one of our meetings previously. When our firefighters go on alarms, for whatever reason we're called, they're on 911 alarms. If we realize in that building, especially 1 and 2 family homes, if there are smoke detectors absent, we install them right on the spot. And then we also take requests from the people that live in the city. And if we get the requests, we send them out to our firefighters working in the stations, and they schedule times to go and install these detectors. So this particular grant, we would use that money to actually keep continuing with the program and the process that we have in place.
And that certainly help us, with the budget as well, where, we don't have to use as much as we would have if we don't have this grant. Right?
Certainly. Yes, certainly. Every year I've been identifying money in our operating budget to purchase smoke detectors because like most of us know, especially the firefighters, smoke detectors are the #1 thing you can do to prevent getting hurt in a fire. So it alerts you early. It gives you the time to get out of a fire with your family. So that's one of the #1 fire prevention priorities we have, and this grant will certainly help us with that.
Well, Chief, if 5% is what we have to spend to get 40,000, I'm not a mathematician, but it sound like a good investment.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Chief,
I
now,
don't know.
real quick, you said smoke, but they're a mixture of smoke and carbon, right?
Yes, we're also going to buy some carbon monoxide detectors too. They're a little bit more expensive. We, our bread and butter are putting in the smoke detectors because we can get them at such a lower price. But we are going to buy some carbon monoxide detectors also with some of this grant money. Sorry for excluding that.
Other questions?
Yes, if I could, Counselor, just a really quick comment. I think National Grid had some kind of carbon monoxide or detector program last year. Are you aware of that?
Yes, Councilor Schultz. Often we team with National Grid or the Red Cross, and we do neighborhood blitz programs to work with them with our smoke detectors. Sometimes they have different requirements that they need to establish to put the detectors in. So we try to work with them to hit the neighborhoods that they are needing to hire based off of their requirements of their money that they have. But sometimes ours are specifically for city residents. When you talk about National Grid or you talk about Red Cross, they're obligated to other areas more than the city. So sometimes we can work out initiatives to work together. Sometimes their money and detectors go outside the city. But anytime we have some programs that we can work together, I'm pretty sure we try to do that all the time if we can. So I hope that answers your question.
It sure does. It would be nice if National Grid just handed that money over to you because you seem like a well-oiled machine there that knows how to get them to the people quicker than not. So
Yes, well,
thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Allen.
Thank you. I'll jump right into item 19. This has been held on our agenda, I believe, twice now. So I think Jimmy Monto was on and Joe Beery is on. I know last time we held it because a few counselors had some questions. So I'll start off with just opening up to those counselors who had additional questions. And this is for the City as Canvas program.
Counselor Schultz again here with a few questions. If I could share, I'm definitely in favor of beautifying our city in many ways, especially from a trash standpoint. But I really would personally like to see a more thorough proposal. I know that there was a edit to the original proposal that actually included a timeline, which was March 2022 through October of 2024. So if that initial proposal could include that and maybe some more details on the implementation. I know there was a small timeline graphic shared in that presentation, but a little more of the detail on that. And in addition to that, getting buy-in from the TNT members is something that I really would also like to see. I know many of these proposals and just grants in general, you always want to put, demonstrated support by, and I know they did that with the Delavan Center and the Allen Foundation. But, since this is so heavily involving the community, I think at least getting the TNT members, I don't know if it would be taking a vote or if we'd get letters of support like we have for other proposals. I think that would really strengthen this proposal, and maybe even getting letters of support from the schools or however that youth educational component is going to be incorporated. It might help just to really clarify the importance and the goals.
Okay, any rebuttal, Jimmy? No?
Hi, counselors, president,
Hi.
everybody. So I would agree that we're going to need the support of the communities and the TNT members. And TNT members, just so everyone knows, are anybody that lives, work, or own property in areas in each of the 8 sectors. So I don't want to put the cart before the horse and start to announce to these neighborhoods that we're coming in with beautification projects before I know we actually have the ability to go in and do so. I will say this though, just the word of mouth rumor that this project is coming, and people, this is a small community, this is a small city, everybody kind of talks to each other. We have already received people reaching out from several neighborhoods offering buildings. We've actually received artwork already from people that say, I would like to do this. Where can I do it? So there is a buzz. The reason we haven't done a wide, large scale launch to announce it to the neighborhoods is I'm very cautious to tell a city post-pandemic that is already down that we're coming with something that we may not come with. But I will say this, and I can't speak for the entire city, but I think there will be very wide support for this. The support from the foundations, it's not just Delavan, it's Allen, it's also Gifford, the Community Foundation, John Bad Snow, United Way. They're all excited about something like this. So I think we have the buy-in. I'm ready to go with it. Yeah, that's what I'll say for now. If there's more questions, I'll keep going.
Okay, and I know you did submit additional information. I believe it is attached to this new agenda, correct, Patricia?
That's correct.
Yes.
It's found in the back
Okay,
of this ordinance.
all right.
Question about that too, if I could. I did see obviously the TNT sector special projects that were done last year. Again, not directly related to the mural project, and I think it's great the work you do, good. But without the member buy-in, I've been to meetings. Just last night was at Northside Task Force, and that was brought up, and I couldn't find one person in the room that was in favor of it. Granted, it was a small crowd of about 13 people, but I just really feel strongly that communication is important. It looks like Elias has a question, so I'll stop.
I just wanted to speak as a member of the East Side TNT and say that I'm very much in favor of this, and I would love to see this implemented, at least on the East Side where I live. Thank you.
That's what I want to hear.
Jimmy, in terms of implementation in the future, are we making sure that the artists and people who are doing the work are city residents, just to make sure, or will there be an area where like the mural, where we will look for outside talent?
Yeah, so thank you, Counselor. So yes, the main focus is to find city residents that are muralists, that are painters that can execute these projects. We are in hopes that 100% of these projects that we do are city residents. Is that always going to be possible? Probably not. There may be people that live right on the outskirts but work in the city, or own a business inside of the city etc. That are muralists, but there are a bunch of muralists inside the city. The nice thing about this is the partnership that has been created right here, which the ordinance for TNT and the ordinance for the Public Art Commission are melded together for a reason, because it's meant to actually bring the TNT community in with the Arts Commission. So we have the resources to find artists, and we hope to do that. As far as buildings go, the Public Arts Commission will take the lead on making sure that a building or that a place is viable, and we'll go from there. But to answer your question, yes, on all accounts. The last thing that we want to do, and I will say this because I want to make sure that this is clear, the last thing we want to do is put up murals in places that are not the most ideal places. We've seen the mistakes made where a beautiful piece of artwork gets put under a bridge and it deteriorates very quickly because it's a bad place to put. We're not going to do that. We've seen those lessons learned. Councilor Allen and I have talked about this over and over. We have one mural in the city that is painful to all of us because we're watching it fall apart because they didn't do their due diligence before they painted it. So we're going to be very mindful, but we're going to move very quickly. We're going to call for locations. We're going to call for art. I've had conversations every day about this since the last couple of months, and we're going to keep moving quickly.
And Jimmy, forgive me, I'm not an artist. Will there be insurance moving forward to maybe touch them up eventually, or how is this going to work? Are we just going to paint them and leave them there?
Hold on one second, Jimmy. Hold on one second. Right after you answer that, Kate, you can jump in because I know you've been waiting. Okay, go ahead, Jimmy. I'm sorry.
So, Councilor Majoke, the idea is to have them last for as long as they possibly can last. And I think a lot of that depends on the location. And as you know, Mother Nature, she obviously does not live in Syracuse, because if she did, this is not what we'd be dealing with. But we have salt, we have very cold temperatures, we have snow. So they will only last so long if someone does not take care of them. So we'll be mindful with the locations, and Kate can speak to this more than I, and add to what I'm going to say. We can ask the artist, how long do you expect this to last? And there are mistakes made with past murals is how they coat them. And I'm not an artist either, but I've learned a lot about watching them deteriorate. The materials that they use matter, and we're going to make sure that the artist is well prepared to use materials that last as long as possible.
Art lives forever.
If I may, if I could just drop in here, I had a couple quick comments. So first, actually, just following quickly up on what Jimmy was saying, is that wall preparation is also something that is very important. So that will be something that the Public Art Commission always does look to, and ultimately the Public Art Commission will be reviewing each and every of these applications that come through in accordance with the Public Art ordinance. That will be the route that these will take. They'll originate in the neighborhoods and then come to the Public Art Commission for a final review and a vote. I just also wanted to mention that this is not the first time that TNT and the city have worked together on public art proposals and projects, a program. It was actually back, I guess it's a number of years now ago, but 2010, 2011, the city and TNT worked on installation artworks that are still up and around in the neighborhoods. And that was an opportunity to link up TNT funding that they were receiving with a special appropriation from the city budget to fund artworks that, as I say, that are now in not every TNT. I think there are something like 6 out of the 7 sectors we were able to install artwork, and people were enthusiastic. We had great participation, and there was a real hunger to see these artworks going up in the neighborhoods. So that's all that I wanted to add to this.
All right, thank you. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move this forward. I'm going to mark item 19 ready, and I'm moving on to item 20. So this is for the Arts and Cultural Recovery Fund Program. Do we have someone on here to speak about this?
Counselor Allen, I'll just
Yes.
briefly introduce the item, and we have Steve Butler and Kate, of course, here to speak about this item.
Okay.
This is $1.25 million, the Arts and Culture Recovery Fund. It is to support, again, the impact of the pandemic on our arts community, particularly our companies, not-for-profits, and individuals in our community impacted by the pandemic. And again, our ARPA funds are for impacted industries, arts being one of those. So this fund will look to enter into contract with CNY Arts to administer the program. You received in your packet, and it should be in there, an outline of the program structure, how we will identify the programs, what applicants will be responsible for criteria for them meeting. And at this point, if you'd like Mr. Butler or Kate to add any information.
Okay, if we can just do a brief discussion on it, because what I want to do is have a committee meeting on this one. So that way we can kind of dive into it and discuss the details. But if you want, you can give us just a brief summary of what to expect at the committee meeting.
Steve, do you want to take that one?
Thank you for this time, everyone. And I'm so sorry, but my camera seems to be kaput today, so you get this picture of me. This request was created based on, it's data-driven, based on 2 surveys conducted by professional research companies commissioned by CNY Arts, looking at the arts sector at the beginning of the pandemic and again at the end of the quarantine in 2021. The data was pretty, very alarming that on average, each organization had lost over 200,000 and total losses to the region were over 148 million, while individual artists lost over 8 million collectively, and job losses to artists and arts administrators was at 48%. So it was clear that these funds are needed, and they are based, as was described, on impact. We have a plethora of data, probably more than you really want, and I've provided a very robust PowerPoint to Jennifer Tift and Kate Altwaller, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Councilor Allen, if I could ask a question. Steve,
Sure.
are you, I was looking for this in the legislation. Maybe I missed it, but it doesn't seem like there's no administrative fee being charged. Is that true?
No, that is not true. In the PowerPoint, the administrative fee is 11.6%.
Okay. Would that have to be incorporated in the legislation, Mr. Berry? Because I didn't see it unless
That
I
would
missed
be our
it.
usual practice. I'm not sure if it made it into the request letter to identify that.
I didn't see it in the request letter, nor did I see it in the legislation.
Counselor, we'll make
Yeah,
those
so we would base it on the request letter, so we might need to revise the request letter.
Okay. Okay, that's the only question I had. I agree with Councilor Allen, and I commend her because I think I have a bunch of questions about this. I'm more or less disturbed that we seem to be outsourcing some of this money, and I have a big worry about the auditing that will eventually come from the federal government regarding this. So not to cast aspersions on anybody, but I'm very cognizant about the follow-up down the road here. So I commend Councilor Allen. I have a multitude of questions, as I mentioned before, and I look forward to the committee meeting.
Okay, so what I'll try to do is get this on the calendar for Friday. If that works for everyone. Steve, you have to let us know if you'll be available on Friday, and Kate, you as well. And hopefully we can get this figured out by Monday. Okay. All right. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, moving on to item 21. Is there anyone here that
Yeah,
wants
that's,
to?
yeah,
Okay,
that's me again.
okay,
That's, yeah. So this is with, so Kate Atwater, I'm the preservation planner as well as the public art coordinator for the city, but this is preservation planning. This is a request to enter into a contract with the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions, as well as with the local historian Dennis Connors, to provide some training that is going to be geared specifically for the Landmark Preservation Board. The city was awarded a $4,500 grant from the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation back last year. The grant was specifically for board training. We are looking to go into contract with the NAPC as well as Dennis to provide a few training sessions, and they're all going to be web-based actually. So if there are other individuals who are interested in participating, they can, and there may be a good overlap given the subjects. But this is actually to get us ready and prepared for moving to a new zoning ordinance, and it just seemed like a really good opportunity to take this time and get some good professional board training.
okay. And these 21 and 22 are companion items, correct, Kate? If I heard you correctly.
21 and 22.
Because
Oh,
22
yes.
is for
Yes.
Dennis
Oh, I'm
Connors.
sorry. Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Any
I-
questions? Yep.
Yeah, I have a quick question. So again, this money is being charged to this account. That's a city account, right? I'm still trying to understand what all these accounts
Yes.
mean. Okay, so it's 12 hours of training for $4,000 for the SLPB board members. Is that who?
That is true. Yep.
Okay.
But as I said, that it would also be, I'm actually, making this available obviously for other city boards as well as other local CLG communities. So there are other similarly set up communities around and about that would participate, and it was one of the things that SHPO was happy to help fund.
You were finished, Counselor Schultz?
Yeah, I am. Thank you. My computer is bugging out right now.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. So moving on. Thank you, Kate.
Thank
To
you.
item 23. This one I know President Hudson will be happy to talk about. But this is to revise the Minority and Women Business Enterprise Participation Program to increase it to 30% overall to match the current New York State standards. Like I said, I know this is something that you were very passionate about and working on for a while. So did you want to speak to it at all?
Yes, I do, Councilor Allen. Thank you.
Okay.
And I want to applaud Tim Rudd, because I know he got sick of hearing me in these RFPs about the EEO sheets and about having the percentage of people that we need to move forth that were women or minorities. So yeah, I'm glad to see this happening, because again, anything that we can do to level the playing field. We talk about people getting ahead. We're talking about everybody moving forward. This is one step to give folks an opportunity to be a part of this process. This is one step to give minority and women business an opportunity to join our team in the RFPs. So again, I want to thank Tim. I want to thank Stacy. And I want to thank Corey, all of you guys, for listening to me and basically humoring me as we went along on these RFPs. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to mention too, with just the increase to the 30%, just from my line of work that I do over here at home headquarters, just we have to find a way to be more supportive and mindful of the minority businesses when it comes to their capital on hand. So we can say that they can, they have to participate in some of these jobs, but a lot of the minority contractors, they don't have the capital to even compete with the other contractors that are here in the city. So that's something that we definitely need to kind of take heed to and figure out different ways to support them. I know with I think it was one of the items above with Jubilee Homes, with their incubator for minority contractors. I know that's going to be a resource that we'll be able to use eventually, but just the funding part of it, as a city, we got to find a way to help them, because a lot of them are getting beat out of these bids and contracts because they don't have the capital to compete. So that's one thing that I really think that we need to focus on.
Also, just as a precursor, that's one thing I'm working on for actually with the credit union, because they have a program now that provides some of that lending capital, to also look at that for us, for the use of ARPA funds for some of that revolving dollars as a revolving loan fund for some of that capital support needed for these companies, particularly as we go into multiple contracting and building opportunities coming up in this city.
Yep, absolutely.
Deputy Mayor, could we use SEDCO as a vehicle for that?
So that was the question. Eric and I talked about this. I felt that their plate was so full right now with the multiple lending. I know that the credit union already has a program specifically for minority companies, so I thought it would be an opportunity to do that. It is not set in stone, but that was kind of the direction we were going. I could further have conversations with Eric, but your point is taken.
I'm sure President Hudson, Councilor Allen, and the rest of the council would support something like using SEDCO for maybe a place where a lot of those minority contractors could go to and get some low interest loans to help them out.
We will circle back on the conversation.
Okay.
Councilor Allen, I'm taking up a collection to buy a slurry machine so we can slurry the streets.
All right, I got you. I got $5 on it. That's all I got right now. You gotta catch me on payday, then I'll give you some more. All right. So I think that's all that I have. So yep, item 23 was my last one. So I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Driscoll, talking about slurry. Here we go.
Thank you, Madam President. I have items 24 through 43, a big book. Before I do, I want to just send my gratitude to you, Council President Hudson, and everyone who worked on that MWE project. That's great advancement. So number 24 is an item that was held regarding the radar signs. We've had a lot of talk about this, the radar sign program for stationary radar programs. Do we have an update on that? Who wants to address that?
Counselor, this is Corey Dunham. So I saw some email traffic between Counselor Majoke and Neil. So I think it sounds like we need to have some conversations offline just to kind of get that straightened out. I think the expectation was made a little bit clearer. So I think, Neil, if you're comfortable with it, we can just kind of follow up offline. I know we're a little tight for time today.
Yeah, I'll circle back with Councilor Majoke as well. Let's set up a time for us all to get together and talk. Sounds good. So it's items 24 and 25, correct? Item 26, I believe we get to Mary Robison.
Yes, good afternoon, councilors. Mary Robison, city engineer. 26 is accepting the lining of a 12-inch combined sewer main and 2 sewer manholes, which will be completed by the Syracuse Community Health Center. The work's going to be done along Taylor Street, the 100 and 200 block. And this is to meet the county's one-on-one sanitary sewer offset requirement. Any questions?
I think that makes sense to me. Any fellow councilors, anything else? No? 9:27, unless anybody else has questions.
Item 27, where you had previously approved a revocable permission to AT&T Corp for running some underground conduit in West Fayette Street and Erie Boulevard West right-of-ways. They found some additional conduit that needs to be installed on West Fayette Street between Seneca and Oswego Street. So they're requesting to amend their ordinance to add an additional 454 feet of conduit in our right of way. So that'll increase our annual fee to them from $2,868 up to $3,595. That's estimated because the price increases every year with the consumer price increase.
Okay, makes sense to me. Any questions from my fellow counselors? Nope. Okay, let's keep it rolling. 28, 29, and 30. I believe that sticks with you, Mary.
Yes, this is our pedestrian improvement project. We're completing the design on this project. This is a transportation improvement program funded project. We discovered due to the increase in costs that we needed an additional $600,000 in order to complete all the pedestrian crossing improvements that we had originally planned. So we did get some additional funding from SMTC through the TIP. So we're asking to increase the construction and construction inspection phase by $600,000 for a total project cost of $2,230,000. There is a 10% local share on that 600,000, so that that's our only local share on the project, though. So we're only paying $60,000 out of $2.23 million. And the project, just to give a quick summary of it, we're going to be making improvements to 47 signalized intersections, which includes accessible pedestrian signals where appropriate, high visibility crosswalk pavement markings, countdown timer indications, signage, and updated signal timing. And then at the uncontrolled crosswalks, that's like a mid-block crossing where there's no stop sign or a signal protecting the pedestrians. We're going to do 73 of those crosswalks with new signage and high visibility crosswalk pavement markings.
Mary, that's 47. Do you know how many there are citywide?
A lot more than that. We have a
It's a great answer.
I don't
Yeah.
know offhand, but we do have a phase 2 project that we just initiated. We're in the process of hiring the consultant. So we do have a phase 2 project. These 47 signalized intersections are all in the downtown area. And of the
Okay.
uncontrolled crosswalks, we're doing all of them that need to be done. So we're completing all the uncontrolled crosswalks, and we're making a dent in the signalized ones.
So what was the thought process of going with downtown first and these uncontrolled? Is the goal eventually to get to all of them and we're just tackling downtown because it's the most populous and busy area first, or was it just randomly
Yes,
selected?
that's for the signalized crossings, Counselor. We decided we're doing the most heavily trafficked ones first. So we're going to do, ones near schools, high business area, commercial areas where there's the most pedestrian traffic.
Okay. Any of my fellow counselors have questions on this one?
Quick question, Mary. I'm gonna push the envelope because I know there's crosswalks. So do we by chance get any, Marcia Shelley? No?
No, this actually was 100% funded. So the 1.6 million was 100% funded. And then we got the additional 600,000. And right now they're making us pay a 10% local share. So that's where the 60,000 local share comes from.
Councilor
Mary.
Driscoll, one question, maybe a Mary, of the folks up on the north side, the Park Street sidewalk issue. I know Neil's been working on it, but as part of that, I think there's a way to get across Hiawatha Boulevard that's been contemplated. Is that part of this signaling device spree of 47? About across Hiawatha Boulevard?
I will have to check the list, but Mike, I looked at the list quickly last night and it looked to be all downtown area, but I can check that for you.
Okay. Well, maybe it's in a separate barrel or something.
Maybe we can put it in the second phase.
Mary, is it possible to share that list with us so we can see, and especially counselors in districts who have eager people about traffic issues? I mean, I
Sure.
know this is downtown, but even still, it's important. Thanks.
Yep, I will forward that to you.
You got a big chunk of downtown in your district, don't you, Councilor? As well, though. Schultz. So some maybe in yours.
Ish. Depends how you define downtown.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions from the council? Okay. Thank you, Mary. That's good. And then we move on to the two-way conversion conversation, Clinton Street. Who's going to handle this from DPW?
Good afternoon, councilors. Neil Burke with DPW. 31 and 32 are related to the Clinton Street two-way conversion project. I'm sure this, some of you may have heard of this one before. It's been kicking around for a few years. It was put out to bid previously, right in the midst of COVID, and the bids we received just were not qualifying. They were extremely high, and contractors were unfamiliar with some of the treatments. So this has been revised. The project limits are the same. It is from Jefferson Street West down to Taylor Street. There are some signal adjustments that need to take place, transitioning from a one-way to a two-way, as well as some pavement rehabilitation and updated striping.
Okay, any questions from my fellow councilors?
Counselor, I'll just say, as a former Clinton Street resident, I think this is very much needed. When I used to live there, I mean, probably like every 10 minutes or so, someone would go the wrong way down that one-way street. It happens all the time, as well as the fact that because it's a one-way, people fly down in that 45 miles an hour, and it's very unsafe because there are a lot of pedestrians there. So I'm really happy this project's moving forward and really appreciate it.
Yes, I know I attended some multiple downtown committee meetings as well, where many of the property owners and developers downtown are very excited to see this happen as well. So I think there's a lot of support for it from neighborhood and development community members as well. Any other further questions for my councilors, fellow councilors? Okay. If not, thank you for that, Neil. Number 33 and 34 are President Hudson's favorite, the effort to make Syracuse great again, the Slurry Seal project with Jeremy Robinson.
Yep, President Hudson's favorite topic. This item is asking the council for permission to advertise for our 2022-23 Slurry Seal program. I believe a public hearing is on the 28th about this, so favorite topic. Let's get some money together, Prez.
I'm ready. All we gotta do is buy the machine and make it happen. Let's go.
I'm with it. Councilor Schultz, yes.
Yes, I have a question. Again, new counselor here, so I'm asking questions that you probably all know in your sleep. But in looking at the CIP project sheet, the authorization, and it says 1.1 from appropriated and unallocated cash capital. So in looking at the budget information on the city's website and looking at that pie chart and looking for that slice of pie that says unallocated, I'm just trying to understand how that works, Mr. Rudd. Thanks. I think you're on mute.
Tim, you're on mute. There you go.
So there is, sorry, my computer audio isn't working, so it's all, anyways. There is no site that would say that. So the way, for these reimbursable projects, we're trying to use our cash capital that is essentially sitting in our capital fund that that is tagged for certain projects, but that isn't currently being spent. So we've always had this cash flow I don't know what to call it, reality where we have to pay for things up front. We used to get bonding, often authorization to bond, and everybody sort of almost like intellectually pretended that meant we were going to bond for it right then. And then all of a sudden we had that money, but we were always in practice using the money that we had in cash in our capital account to pay for it. And then eventually it would be reimbursed by the bonds, but there are certain things that we no longer want to be issuing long-term debt to pay for things that are going to get reimbursed. So this is us just trying to manage our own cash flow and for things that are getting reimbursed. So there may be a need to move funds in the long run into the capital fund so that we have sufficient money to be doing this, because a couple of years ago we actually sort of raided via budget cuts all the idle money that was sitting in the capital account. So there was a year that we didn't move any money into the capital account. We just sort of spent down projects that were lingering and pulled the money out to save money. So I have talked about this Finance Chair, Councilor Green. It gets a little wonky, so I'll spare all the detail. And Councilor Schultz, if you want to talk about it more offline, but there is a need to have, so essentially we have less money in that fund than normal, and we have more and more of these reimbursements happening. So we want a way to be able to pay for them up front and get reimbursed without issuing long-term debt. And we really don't feel like we should have to issue short-term RAND either, given that we have cash on hand. We just need to have the cash in the right place. I would leave it there, I guess, unless you have additional questions.
Yeah, just trying to understand when you say it's tagged but not spent. So why isn't it spent? What's the list of monies that you're pulling from? Are these projects that the council has approved that say we approved a
So
$1
everything
million
is a
project 2 years
project.
ago?
They're all projects that the council has approved, so we're not spending money on anything that isn't council approved. But there are things that we don't feel, if we're going to get reimbursed for it, like CHIPS money for road recon or TIP money for these large road projects, then we don't really want to issue long-term debt for it. So if there's $5 million worth of projects that aren't going to move forward in the next couple months, we're not going to be spending them down because things move slower or they take time or whatever it may be. We just want to use the existing cash that we have to do that. So
Could we request a meeting, like a special meeting to talk about this so that you can educate us very naive financial folks like myself? Because I'm just having a hard time. It's almost like we're robbing from Peter to pay Paul, and it's the same pot of money. But if there's no new money coming in, when those projects that were tagged with finances need those finances, but we already spent it on something new, are they going to be a deficit?
well, I think the question does become, do you believe that the state will reimburse us for the money that they say they will? Or do you believe that the federal government will reimburse us? And if you don't, then that creates a whole bunch of problems. But the reality is that we rely on all different types of state and federal money all the time for it to come in, and we don't act as if it will not. We act as if it will. Like our AIM aid, we don't act as if it won't come until it comes. We act as if it is coming unless it doesn't. So if we were to not have faith in the system working, we will do many things and pay a premium for that level of insurance, and I'm not sure that the risk is actually there. So this is our attempt to minimize our own expenses on things like RAMs or on previous practices like issuing long-term debt for things that we eventually get reimbursed for and then not paying down that debt. So it's never been, I guess, a perfect situation, but I think that we're trying to do it in a more right situation, and it kind of accentuates this thing that you're saying of, well, are you spending the money for other projects? I guess the answer is sort of yes, but we're going to get reimbursed. So as long as you believe in the reimbursement coming, the money is still there. And it's just us managing our cash flow to minimize the expense. But I'm happy to talk about it more and to talk about it with you individually in a committee setting, however you like.
Okay, I appreciate that. I would like that clarification and follow up just because I don't understand promised money you know, we expect it's going to be coming from the Fed, so we shouldn't worry about it, but we have to cover it in the meantime. So I'm just trying to be on point here. Thanks.
Okay. Any further questions from my fellow counselors? Okay. If not, we can move on to items 35 and 36 regarding the issue around parking meters. I believe Director Dunham, are you handling this, or who's handling this for the team?
I think Commissioner Robinson.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Counselor, this item is to help us upgrade our parking meters. We're looking to purchase about 300 of them through our CIP. The cost will be a little bit over 2 million, which each meter costing roughly about $6,750. Just to give you some insight on our current meters, we have in place. These meters are a little old. We bought them years ago, refurbished. So the cost of maintaining them and the repairs is just getting way too expensive for us. And before we lose out on much needed revenue, we figured it's time to update the system. It's time to update our meters. So the meters will come with touch screens, which is great in this pandemic era. Be compatible with our parking meter app. We eliminated the dollar bill receiver because that was the problem for most of our repairs with the dollar bill receiver. So we eliminated that. And that aligns with most of the cities around us where they're going with coin, card, and or app payment method. So that's a good thing for us. The installation schedule, we can talk about that a little further once we get approval from you guys. And the bottom line, over the last 6 years, we average about 2.2 in revenue on the meters. Last year being our worst year with only 1.5. So before we lose out on much needed revenue, we figured we'd ask for permission to buy these meters. I also got Joe DeBello, our superintendent of transportation, on if we have any questions that I can't answer. So fire away.
Commissioner, you said the cost. I'm sorry, Councilor Driscoll.
No,
Commissioner, you said the cost of repair and maintenance is getting high. What was it last year?
Joe, you got that in front of you, Joe?
Not
I know
offhand.
that's, excuse me?
Not offhand. I know it was a lot though.
We can get that to you, Counselor. I know one of the parts that we was one of the major components in the dollar bill receiver was upwards of $50 to $100,000, right? Right, Joe?
Yeah, for one of those parts costs $1,700 new, and if we get it refurbished, it's about $1,200.
Okay.
That
So,
seems to be the culprit.
and then we have to pay for the actual installation, correct?
Correct.
And
So,
you said the cost of a new meter is $6,000.
$6,000 now, $6,750, Counselor.
6,700. You said.
Yes, $6,750.
Okay.
$6,750.
Can I ask a quick question of Mr. DeBello?
Sure.
Okay, I know with the old meters, I know that we're getting rid of them because of the longevity of the parts, okay? So you've been around a while, right?
Quite a while.
Okay. Do you know when we went over to the old parking meters, did we actually ever make money or break even compared to what we had to spend in repairs?
All I can say, you're talking about the first model, which was back in 2004. They were the DG Classics that we put up. So again, it was another city's used models that we put up. As far as finances and what they made, I don't get
Well,
it.
not to cut you off, but can you talk about Parkion? Because those are the ones I know about.
That is Parkion, the DG.
Okay.
Well, that was the type we got with the taller ones, the DGs, and then we went to what they call the strata BNAs, and that's just means bill note acceptors, which means the dollar bills. And yes, I do believe there was a problem with policing, but once that got taken care of, it's all about policing. It's all about writing those tickets and getting people to pay the parking meters. And I'm pretty sure, now I'm not a finance guy. My job down here is the maintenance of this bureau. I don't really know much about the monies that are coming in, but I'm pretty sure that they're making money. As Commissioner Robinson just said, we made, well, I thought it was closer to 2 million last year in a terrible pandemic year.
1.5, Joe. 1.5, 2.2 over the average over the last 6 years.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. So that's not too bad. And
Okay.
these machines are just seeing their time. Not only are they getting beat up, but the parts are getting very hard to get because they're becoming obsolete. And as the commissioner said, these new touchscreens, just like your phone, it's the thing. People don't have to even just get close to them, and you can do what you have to do. No more buttons. So it's a good idea. It's time.
And Jeremy, I'll be in touch with you because I want to see what the full revenue was that came into us. And then I want to go back through my notes and I want to see how much we actually paid out to Parkeon because it's quite substantial.
Okay, I can get that for you.
Okay.
And Commissioner, can you send along the revenue sheet that we can also see in addition to what it costs to repair them?
Yep, I can do that too. I got the revenue sheet right in front of me. I could send that along as well as the cost of repairs.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on park commuters from my fellow counselors? No? All right, if that's the case, number 37, is that going back to Mary Sewers?
No, I've got it. Marty Davis, Deputy Commissioner,
Marty.
DPW. Good afternoon, counselors. We're requesting authorization for $30,000 to finish our last phase of the acquisition of all our old maps from the Department of Engineering for sewers, pavement, bridges, monument cards. This is a total of 68,000 documents on various parts of media, Mylar, linen, paper, and Dead Sea Scrolls. We had them all scanned and color scanned. And our last phase will complete all of this. So now we have the complete Department of Engineering records down here at DPW on computer.
All right. Any question from my fellow counselors? No? Okay. If no one else has questions, thank you for that, Marty. Appreciate it. Items. Oh, someone have a question? No? Items 38 through 43, I believe, are all, or 42 are with Joe Awald, I believe, Commissioner of Water.
Yes, Joe Awald, Commissioner of Water here. Item 38 is our annual intermunicipal agreement with the county to for fueling, to fuel up our vehicles and equipment that are out in Skaneateles Lake watershed. This is something we typically do so the equipment and vehicles don't have to come all the way back to the city to get fuel. Any questions on that?
Nope, fellow counselors. That should be good. Number 39.
All right. Well, 39, 40, and 41 are all connected. So 39 is an ARPA-funded project that we're going to do on conduit number 3, which goes underneath 9 Mile Creek in the town of Camillus. We want to utilize that funding appropriated for that project, along with $1 million from the project funded under item number 40, which is the intake extension project out into the lake to then put into an immediate need project on West Genesee Street, which is item number 41. So the West Genesee Street project, I'm sure you guys are all familiar with, but just a quick recap, it's going to be a large mill and pave project through engineering. They're doing some sewer work on that stretch. It's from Myrtle to Salina Street. The county is also doing some green infrastructure projects on that street. We have some broken water valves along that stretch in that corridor, along with a lot of our water main on that corridor is from 1894. And we also have approximately 85 lead services on that stretch. So we want to utilize the money from those projects that are a little bit farther out to this immediate need project that's going to happen this summer, which is the West Genesee Street project. Any questions?
Joe, so this will be aligned, excuse me, Commissioner, this will be aligned with the West Genesee reconstruction project that's going to extend all the way to the city line, correct? So you'll do in conjunction, okay.
Yeah, we're going to be, coordinating and tag teaming on getting all the stuff done so no one's in each other's way. That way it can hopefully work in a very smooth, coordinated process.
I like dig once. I like that.
Me too. Any other questions?
I was trying not to ask no questions, but I have to. So, Commissioner, I heard you talk about the line coming from Clay, from the intake, right?
So we have our conduit number 3, which is part of the 3 conduits coming from Skinny Atlas Lake into the city. One of our conduits goes under 9 Mile Creek, which is out in Camillus. That's one of our, it's one of the lowest points, so that has the highest pressure coming from the lake. We typically have joint leaks in that area. We've been monitoring that area over the last few years. Knock on wood, it's been relatively good. So we're going to take money from that. I'm assuming that's the project you're referring to.
Yeah, I am. But my what I'm referring to is what I want to ask you is, so when we're doing all of this in these different municipalities, do we actually take full responsibility for the cost, or is there some help from Town of Camillus maybe along the way?
So this is all within our right of way, so it's all of our responsibility. If we are doing working on a connection, say to the Village of Jordan and Elbridge, we could probably partner with them because it's their connection. But depending on where that legal jurisdiction starts and stops, if it's our pipe, it's our responsibility.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Okay, if there's no other questions, Commissioner, I believe you still had what, number 42?
Yes, number 42 is waiver of competitive bid for JCI Jones Chemical. JCI Jones bid on our liquid chlorine contract that we put out. I believe it's once a year or twice a year. The current contract we just put out, they had some objections to some of the legal language about holding their price for long periods of time. Because of the volatile market, prices are moving. They can change on a monthly, even 6-month basis, depending on what material it is. Our contract expires for our chlorine at the end of March. And in order to try to put out another contract with a new language to entice potentially more bidders, we want to do a waiver of competitive bid for this vendor for a short period of time till we can put out a new contract beginning of July. That way we don't miss having any chlorine available for disinfection of our system. Any questions?
No, doesn't seem like any of my fellow councilors have a question. I just say I'm fully in support of that, and thanks for all your effort on this, Commissioner Awell.
You're welcome.
Okay. Finally, the last item. This is a home rule message. For those of you who are familiar, I've been working with, the administration. I've been working on addressing the deer problem throughout the city. Most particularly, it's a heavy problem in my district, in the 5th district on the east side. And this would enable us to get to areas that we're currently not able to reach due to the state's limits on the distance that the sharpshooters need to be from the roads and houses. So this would greatly help the constituents of the east side, who we hear from frequently that they're still very concerned about the health and safety hazards of the deer overpopulation. So I just want to advocate for this last item, and it's a memorializing resolution. And that would be taken up to the state. If that's nobody has any questions about that, unless they do, that's the last of my items, President, and I'll pass it back to you.
Councilor Driscoll, I'd just like to commend you and former Councilor Maroon on this issue. This has been an immense help to the people up here in my council district as far as the deer culling, and I congratulate you on taking aggressive action towards this. So thank you.
Yeah, and Councilor Driscoll, I wanna also piggyback on that. In my neighborhood here, especially in the Winkworth area, Commissioner LaFave knows that been making a lot of noise about it, and the last time the culling was happening, they did us well here. So thank you for pushing for that.
Great stuff. Well, hopefully if we can pass this measure, if the state can pass this measure, we'll be able to get even more done and be able to address even more concerns and help more constituents, and share Councilor Hogan's effort. Thanks to Councilor Maroon for running those laps and handing me the baton as we were trying to push this through. He definitely ran a good chunk of the race before I got here, so it's much appreciated.
All righty, all set? With that, I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Council President, everyone know that we're going into a committee meeting with public, what is that, Public Works?
Right, that started at 1 o'clock, so I'm hoping
Right.
still there. So.
There's a
Yeah.
way
It's
to go.
1:45.
Yeah.
Okay.
All righty.
So it's only gonna last for 15 minutes.
It ain't gonna last till we get off the phone now. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Adjourn.
Need second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All of us.
All righty, public meeting. Thank you.